Stephanie Ruhle, I have not asked you what you thought about this rollout tonight. What did you think?
I mean, it's tough to find any flaw in it. I'm obviously always focused on the economy. And as it relates to Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, they're completely aligned because it's all about the practical care economy. And he's got the record to prove it, right? So for people who are going, well, this Midwestern guy, does he know big business? You've got Target, you've got 3M, you've got General Mills, you've got United Healthcare, all based in Minnesota. But when you actually think about his record, look at even the last 5 years, right? When the expanded child tax credit expired on a federal level, he passed it on a state level. He said it's one of his signature accomplishments. We've all seen the videos this week, him surrounded by kids signing into law to make sure they don't even have it done yet in Pennsylvania. He did it in Minnesota. Free breakfast and free lunch, right? His platform is about dignity. And that really aligns with what Kamala Harris is trying to say, that everyone should live their lives socially free, financially secure, and physically safe. So will you say, are these two similar? They have different backgrounds. What they're trying to provide the American people are completely aligned, and he's done it in Minnesota.
And Minnesota has a AAA bond rating. They're rated one of the top 10 states in the country for business. They're rated the best state in the country for health care. He calls the state the best state in the country to raise kids, and he says that's his guiding star as governor. I mean, when the business community, when the Wall Street donors, when the C-suite class, who all text you for some reason, ask your opinion about him, are you able to look at his record and about what's happened as a state, as a two-term governor, and tell the business community that they've got something that appeals in him?
Well, what I can do is show them Donald Trump, because it was less than a week ago, Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan, who has tried to give every single possible conceivable olive branch to Donald Trump to be a human. OK, he wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post last week saying we need both candidates to really come together. We need unity. We need to stop with the name calling. And he didn't call out Donald Trump. And today, Donald Trump is on his social media platform saying the most awful, ridiculous, silly insults of every elected Democrat. So it's getting harder and harder for big business people to be anti this Democratic ticket, because look at their record. Yeah. Now, the thing to be concerned about, if you're Kamala Harris, if you're Tim Walz right now, this tech community is real. And yes, there are some that are backing her, but this Elon Musk universe is real. And just yesterday, that court ruling against Google, right, calling out Google for being the monopoly that it's fair to say, based on it, it very much is, you are going to see a groundswell of money get behind Donald Trump, because the idea that these massive tech companies are now being called out, like, yes, Google is the only search engine out there. And because they're the only one, no one else can get in the game. Be prepared. We could see a lot of big, quiet money get behind Donald Trump, even if they hate his guts, because they are afraid that they're about to be called to task.
Super interesting. Nicole, you have a guest.
And Happy, they're like number 3 on the Happy Index, too.
Yeah.
They're going through the...
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
Who doesn't like corn dogs?
Right. That seems happy.
The line that I wrote down from Mr. Governor Coach Walz, I guess we're going to have to now call him, thank you for bringing back the joy.
Yeah, that was his opening line.
Right? And I think that's part of what it is. I've gotten so many text messages from people who have been locked in this just cycle of terror and fear about what's to come, right? This fear of fascism that's legitimate, because Donald Trump really does want to bring back fascism.
Well, you said you wouldn't talk about our private discussions on TV. That is private, Joy. Jesus. I'm sorry.
I can't with you. I can't.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, the reality is, I think a lot of people have forgotten how fun campaigns can be. I mean, I actually enjoyed working on campaigns back in the day because there was something about it that was sort of the civic mindedness of it, the kind of camaraderie of it. And there's a certain aspect of it that's fun, even though the stakes are big. And I think that with Donald Trump, he's got this kind of stale act that isn't new. It isn't fresh. He's doing the same shtick that he did in 2016 and 2020. And it's a bit boring, but it's wrapped up in the things he wants to do to us. They want to drag us back to the 1950s. They want women to all get married and have babies, and they want to have 10-year-olds have kids. He wants 10-year-olds to have lunch. You know, it's just a simple Midwestern values thing that that Barack Obama did in his campaign. You can say that he's this sort of exotic figure, thing as Barack Hussein Obama. Trump is, again, using his whole middle name. But you know what he is? He's like a normal guy that you would play basketball with. And so is this guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a powerful thing that people forget, that it works. And it worked for Joe Biden. It's one of the ways that Biden defeated Trump is he said, I'm just going to bring back normal. I'm not going to do all these wild things. I don't, poo in a gold toilet like this guy. This guy's like a weird guy. He's odd. J.D. Vance is even weirder. And this is like comfortable, normal, and joyful. That is a powerful thing in campaigns.
I will say, that if you look at for Americans discovering that there's a person named Tim Walz today, which is a huge proportion.
Just to be clear.
Yes. And a huge proportion even of Democrats, right?
Right.
But they're learning that this is a guy who is a straight white guy from the Midwest who talks like he's from Minnesota because he's from Minnesota. He grew up on a farm. His dad was in the Army. He did 24 years in the Army National Guard. He was a command sergeant major, which is a big freaking deal. He was a high school social studies teacher. His wife was the English teacher. He was the football coach. He ran in a conservative district, was seen as a centrist, had an A rating from the NRA, and was the champion congressional sharpshooter. And when Parkland happened, when the Parkland shooting happened, and his daughter was 17 years old, and he is a lifelong gun owner and hunter, and he's A-rated from the NRA, he decides that he needs to evolve on that issue. And he, as most gun owners do, decides that he's going to support background checks, he's going to support red flag laws and other common sense gun safety laws. And what does he do when he was running for governor that year, when all that is happening? He makes that change. And then he turns around and he donates to charity every dollar the NRA had ever donated to him over the course of his career when he was an A-rated NRA Democratic moderate from a rural red-leaning district.
And he gets an F. And
now he has an F, and he wears it as a badge of honor.
I think that's part of what the Harris campaign is sort of saying. What she's saying with this is America, and it's inviting. We talked about the Zoom calls, which can be different constituency groups, but the white guy Zoom call, it's half a joke.
That's white dudes.
White dudes, thank you. Yes, the dude abides. It's half a joke, but it's also very real in that you're bringing these people together. And so Democrats spent many years on defense on so-called conservative issues, including national security or safety. You just talked about what does gun safety look like, or wearing a darn flag pin. And I'm all for celebrating America any way you choose. But all of the right-wing flag pin theater is very different from what Harris is saying today, which is this is also America, but it has certain values. And he said you can have compromise orientation without compromising your values. And so that's a different sort of invitation. And it's different than it being right-wing performative. And now you have the so-called MAGA folks on defense about, what's the real America they represent?
They're debating who's weirder. Like, if you're debating whether you're weirder or they're weirder, like, you're already losing. He is what J.D. Vance pretends to be. And that's the problem.
The other thing is, I think because the country is not particularly divided on abortion, 76% of Americans thought Roe was properly decided, not divided on gun safety. 85% wants gun safety legislation, including majority gun owners. What all the Republicans have had for the last 10 years is cultural division. He erases it all in 40-minute speech. Go on.
I just think this, watching the Democratic Party work through itself in the last 3 weeks or so, and it's just, again, I keep coming back to this notion of pluralism because it's like a weird dated word that no one uses anymore, but I think it's really beautiful and kind of the central core of this whole thing, which is when you talk about there's different constituencies, there's different, democracy is about attaching across all these lines of difference. We're trying to build a multiracial democracy. We've really only been one since the Voting Rights Act. It's super hard to do. They fall apart left and right. And here you've got this moment on stage with she's got these parents who are both immigrants from different traditions. She grows up in Oakland. He's from this totally different part of America and this totally different upbringing. And there they are on stage, stitching together this coalition that is the pro-democracy coalition, which is embodied in the Democratic Party, which got all different kinds of lines of difference. It's got to hold together with people that disagree and are coming from different places.
And you know what the
and
word
it
for
felt
that is,
like
though, Chris?
that was it today. Like there, you see it. Like this is what it looks like.
The word for that is diversity.
Yeah,
and
exactly
the Republicans are
what it
running
is.
from it, but that's all
That's
it
what it
means.
is.
It
Yeah.
just means
Yeah.
that everyone's at the table.
We are different types of people who come from different places,
Yeah.
who share the values that we
Yeah.
all ought to have an equal say, and we all ought to try to do the best for our families.
Yeah.
Big secret that we want to let you in on, MSNBC viewers, is that we all have our various skills and all things that we bring to the table as MSNBC hosts, but the only one of us who is truly connected, truly has like a bat phone on which he can call the most powerful people in the world, is the Reverend Al Sharpton, who joins us here. Rev, I want to ask you what you thought of the rollout tonight, but then I want to ask you what the real powers that be are saying about this choice, because I know the most powerful people in the world call you for advice.
Yes, Joy does call me.
Like, daily.
I thought the rollout couldn't have been better. When you see that crowd, I mean, Donald Trump has got to be going crazy, because this is legitimately a packed house after she did the same thing in the same arena in Atlanta that he was complaining about empty seats. But I think it's not only the crowd, it's the enthusiasm, it's the energy that we've not seen probably since '08. That is really bringing people together across age groups, gender, and race. When you look at Tim Walz, when it was announced this morning, and I was sitting right in this room with Nancy Pelosi on Morning Joe when it was announced, the immediate thing I thought about, here's a guy, gun owner, came as a Blue Dog congressman, who, when George Floyd happened, and the family called me and I flew into Minneapolis in a pandemic, they were rioting. He was dealing with all of the violence, and at the same time, people were saying, but did you hear, Reverend, what the Minneapolis DA said? We don't know we're going to get a fair trial. Called Governor Walz, and it was he that talked to the DA to step aside, and he appointed Keith Ellison as the special prosecutor.
That's right.
I do not believe we would have got the convictions, probably the few police that, as much as that tape convicted him, we've had tapes before, if Keith Ellison had not been the prosecutor. That would not have happened without Governor Walz. Then during the trial, a young man was killed in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, about 15, 20 miles up. And not only did he denounce the killing as governor, he came to the funeral. I introduced him to speak, and he gave a proclamation to the family. And he says, I'm pro-police, I'm pro-law enforcement, but we've got to stop this killing of black kids. This is what he said. So a man with that kind of balance, I think, is the right man to be on this ticket, because this is the balance that Kamala Harris has. You have to remember, the Republicans always ran as the law and order candidate. Here you have people that have been a prosecutor, that have been pro-police, running against a man with 34 felonies that I would suspect he's got to call his parole officer to get permission to go to the next city to campaign, because you got to report in. And by the way, he's got to stop in September to be sentenced right here in Manhattan. So how's that the law and order candidate? You've got a candidate with felonies as the president, and you have a guy that is running for vice president that we don't know what he is, because he doesn't know what he is.
Yeah, a real hole in Republican self-awareness today when they briefly started criticizing Governor Tim Walz for restoring voting rights for felons, like that was a terrible thing. Anybody convicted of a felony shouldn't be allowed to vote, they say, before they then look around and realize who their nominee is and whether he should be allowed to vote is an awkward question when he's their candidate for president. Rev, thank you very much. Happy to have you here.
Joining me now is Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts. Senator, it's great to have you on. First, I want to just vibe check here and get your reaction to the announcement today.
Wow. I think it's fantastic. You know, the way I look at this is a test of leadership. We watched these two candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and this is the most consequential thing they do really as they launch their campaigns into this final run, and that is pick a running mate. And so Donald Trump says he wants to go with a venture capitalist who has almost no public service record at all and really has never had much experience governing. That's who he wants to be the last person to talk to him before he makes a decision. The guy whose main experience has been venture capital funding from billionaires in Silicon Valley. By contrast, Kamala Harris has said, the person I want for a partner, the one I want in my ear, the last person to talk to me, is somebody who has been a public school teacher, somebody who has a 24-year military career, but someone who has spent his entire life in service. Someone who, as governor of Minnesota, has gotten so much done. They're the right fights from the heart. So much done for hungry kids so they can have lunch and go and learn, for women to be able to make their own decisions about abortion and IVF. That's the kind of person she picks for the person who will be her ultimate partner in the work that gets done by the next administration. So I really see this as a moment. I'm delighted about Tim Walz, but I really see it as a moment that's one more measure of the difference between a Donald Trump and his presidency, as he would lay it out, and Kamala Harris and what she's telling us about the America she wants to be and the kind of president she wants to be.
I want to ask you a question about running for president, because I think there's probably no experience quite like it. I've never experienced it myself, but I covered a lot of it, and I've talked to a lot of folks while they've been doing it. It strikes me as a very bizarre undertaking for a lot of reasons. It's different than any other office you'll run for. I'm just curious what you think of Kamala Harris, who's someone who you campaigned alongside of when you were running in 2020, has had this campaign that no one could have really predicted or crafted, that hasn't ever existed in American history, what she's sort of taken on the last few weeks, and what you make of it so far, given that you understand a little bit about how difficult running for president is.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and if I can, let me frame it out this way. You run for president, boy, it's like trying to cross an ocean with winds going in every direction, right? And you gotta stay on course for what it is. You gotta know why you're there and what it is you're fighting for. I've known Kamala Harris for 14 years now, and we got to know each other in a different kind of storm. We got to know each other in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. And following that crisis, I was trying to set up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, go CFPB. Kamala was the new Attorney General for California. And both of us were working shoulder to shoulder, fighting back against these giant banks that had cheated people and now were busily trying to take away homes from as many of them as they possibly could. And so I got to know her really down in the trenches, and I got to watch her when there was a deal on the table that the attorneys general were going to go for all around the country, and not Kamala. She said, I'm holding out for something better for the people of California. I'm responsible for them. I'm going to stand up. She was under enormous pressure, and yet she was steely. She hung in there. She knew what she was doing, and she never got blown off course. I think of that, and I've worked with Kamala since then, both in her years as Attorney General, when she decided to run for the Senate, one of the first to get in there and endorse her because I thought she'd be terrific, work with her in the Senate, work with her as Vice President. So I see this as, yes, who would have predicted what's unfolded in the last 3 weeks? It's just been amazing and astonishing, and yet it is a part, at least as I see it, of she's doing what she always wanted to do. She's out there fighting for what she believes in. She's just being given a different set of tools. She's in a different form. But there's the person who was the prosecutor, who was the AG, who was the senator, who was the VP, who's always fought for working people, who's always been there for the underdog, who's always had the courage to try to hold the most powerful people accountable. And that's what I see her doing again and again. Every time I listen to one of her speeches, I think, yeah, that's the same Kamala. And that's the person who is bringing us together, not just as a party, but as a nation, and showing us a vision of who we can be. Turn the page on the old guy. Let's go forward.
I'm recalling this from memory because I remember covering that proposed settlement between the banks on foreclosure. They were foreclosing on people's homes they didn't have the title to, often because they had completely lost the chain of custody of that title. Yep. If I'm not mistaken, I think there were two AGs who rejected the deal. It was Kamala Harris and the Attorney General of Delaware at the time, Beau Biden. Of course, the president's son, who later passed away, and I believe they worked together on that. Final question to you about the often the sort of delightfully small d Democratic disputatious coalition of the Democratic Party. It's got lots of different factions. It's got lots of different interests. I think that's part of a healthy democracy. We've only got two major parties and two major coalitions. There's going to be factional battles over all sorts of stuff. You know that very well. You've been involved with them in one way or the other. Do you see this pick of Tim Walz as having some factional significance? This is a pick for the left. This is a pick for the centrists. This signals something factionally to you.
Look, I think it's picking someone who will be a good partner for her. And I really do think that's how she looks at it. She's been a good partner to Joe Biden, and I think she wants more than anything else a good partner, an authentic partner, somebody who's not just gluing it on to be out here in public, but somebody who really from the heart feels it all and has the courage to get into tough fights and who is willing to do what needs to be done for the team. And always I want to underscore about Tim Walz, who delivered for the people of Minnesota when he had the skinniest possible majority, right? He had a one-vote majority in his legislature, and yet was able to talk across the aisle and get people together to produce for families in Minnesota. And I think that's, for me, that's the heart of understanding what this pick is. She looks, I think, I don't want to speak for her, but what I see is she can look over at Tim Walz and say, that's someone I can count on. That's someone the American people can count on. And so that's why she wants it.
All right, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, great thanks for stopping by on this big night. Really appreciate it.
Joining me now is Pete Buttigieg, former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and former presidential candidate. He's joining us tonight in his personal capacity and not speaking on behalf of the Biden administration. Mayor Pete, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Same here. Thanks for having me on. Great to be with you.
Let me start just by asking you what you think of the vice president's pick and what you think Tim Walz will bring to the ticket.
I'm really excited. Like you said, she had so many great directions she could go in. She also has found an extraordinary partner who has brought that joy immediately to the campaign trail, and somebody who I think sets up this ticket and this campaign even more than was already true to be about all of us. That's the thing I'm really excited about. As you showed, he has such a compelling story, such an interesting biography, classroom teacher, many years in the military, football coach, and then a very effective member of Congress and governor. But one thing you notice right away about him is that it's not about him. I was thinking about what those different experiences have in common. Being a teacher, being a coach, being a senior non-commissioned officer. And what they all have in common is they're all about cultivating and supporting other people. And you can tell that's what he's about. And that's what this ticket is about. I think it's one of the reasons why the Trump campaign can't figure out what to do with this ticket, even more so today than what's been true ever since she became the nominee. They cannot fathom a campaign or any leaders who are not about themselves. But this campaign, as impressive and compelling as the ticket themselves are, they've also made it clear that this campaign isn't about them. It's about you. It's about us. It's about the future of this country. And I think his personal qualities and his message really speak to that in a way that's going to continue that focus on the American people. That's how she's going to win this election.
It's such an important point in politics. As you know, you run for president very successfully. I mean, it should be about who you're running to represent. And sometimes that's been lost as we've watched Donald Trump try to run to protect himself. I want to play some of how Tim Walz contrasted the two campaigns tonight. You and I have talked about freedom and the freedom message, and get your thoughts on the other side.
some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
I mean, I love mind your own damn business because it's so ironic given Republicans run as Democrats are trying to kind of overreach in government. And that's basically what they're trying to do. But what do you make of that messaging?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classically Midwestern way to put forward this simple point that is how Republicans, today's Trump Republican Party, really lost the claim that conservatives and Republicans used to make on being the party of freedom. You know, as you know, for years, I've believed that Democrats need to talk about that more, and we're seeing that in such effective form in this campaign. She has made freedom a key theme of her campaign. I saw Governor Shapiro tonight also speaking powerfully in his remarks in Philadelphia to the importance of freedom. And Governor Walz captured it so well when he said that you can't claim to be about freedom when you are invading people's family decisions and health care decisions the way today's GOP has ever since Trump demolished the right to choose. And again, I just love the formulation that brings it back down to basics and in a way that I think is really going to connect with a lot of people who are tuning into this campaign, especially with all the change at the top of the ticket, asking that one question that every campaign is fundamentally about, which is, what does this mean for me, and how is my future going to be different if it's this leader versus the other leader?
It is all about how people feel it will impact them, to your point. Now, there's some big moments coming up. There's, of course, the Democratic Convention coming up in just 2 weeks. There's tonight, we also saw Governor Walz challenge J.D. Vance to a debate, so that will be interesting to watch. I mean, if that debate happens, he's not going to have a lot of time to prepare. He's going to need someone to stand in for J.D. Vance in debate prep. Do you know any Democrats who can play a millennial, Ivy League educated military veteran from the Midwest? Do you know anyone?
Obviously, I'll make myself useful however I can, although I'm still recovering a little bit from the experience of trying to inhabit the mind of Mike Pence in order to play that role for Kamala Harris when she was in debate prep 4 years ago. Again, I'll do anything to help this ticket win, but I don't know if it'll come to that. But I do think the contrast is fantastic. I mean, just again, somebody who is so clearly and straightforwardly connected to the experiences of most Americans, the way Tim Walz is. I mean, the first time I met him, or at least the first time I spent much time with him, was at the Minnesota State Fair. It was right next to the enclosure where they do the butter sculpture, the life-size butter sculpture, which is about as prototypically Minnesota State Fair as I can imagine. And he greeted me like an old friend, and just I remember thinking, you know, he's obviously the governor. I know what he looks like, and he sounds like the governor, but he didn't carry himself like somebody who thought he was more important than anybody else in the room, in the building, or on the fairgrounds. He's somebody who just knows where he came from and gets where people are at. Seeing the contrast between that and J.D. Vance, who has contorted himself repeatedly from a never-Trumper Silicon Valley investor to now trying to be a voice of the working class Midwest. It's just going to be an extraordinary contrast, and I'm very much looking forward to watching that debate.
It's quite a and for anyone from the Harris campaign who's watching, it sounds like Mayor Pete is saying he's willing to embody J.D. Vance for a period of time if needed for the cause. We'll see. Now, I want to ask you, because you have just you seem to enjoy fighting back against in Fox News interviews and against disinformation out there. And we've already seen a bit of this today, which is this kind of accusation that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who's a former high school teacher, former football coach, is somehow a San Francisco liberal. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he's not one, right? That he's somehow linked to Chinese Communist Party. What do you think? I mean, should they take these attacks on? What should they do? They're trying a lot of things, but some of them may resonate with people. What do you think?
You know, I think they're flailing right now. They just don't know how to respond to this campaign that, again, as excited as we are about the VP and her running mate, they're not making it about themselves. It's about all of us. And there's just the Trump campaign doesn't quite know what to do. They also definitely don't know what to do with any effort to unify the country. So they're going back to what they always do, which is division. You know, you saw it with the abhorrent remarks from Donald Trump at NABJ, really trying to shift the conversation from all of us to him by blurting out these racially charged remarks at the National Association of Black Journalists. Wisely, cleverly, I think Kamala Harris responded to it, condemned it, but then dismissed it and got right back to her message. And I think that's going to be the same response you'll see here. Of course they're trying to say that he's too far left. They say that about literally any Democrat running against literally any Republican. If it was Joe Manchin, they'd be saying the same thing because it's all they know how to say. Of course, that'll be refuted, and we'll remind everybody that, you know, if you think, I don't know, making sure that everyone in Minnesota had paid family leave, as he's done, if you think that's too far left, you can go around saying that, but vast majority of Americans think that's a good idea. So, yes, you can do the point-by-point answer. We'll do the fact-checking. But I think it's going to be really important not to take the bait, because they will try to redirect the conversation toward whatever is darkest and most divisive and you know, most out of that same old playbook that we've seen again and again and again. But you can see how tired Americans are of that playbook and how energized people are. I mean, that rally, I just caught a few minutes of it, but off the charts energy there. So you can see that Americans are ready for something different. And I think, you know, the more the Trump campaign flails in that old, dark, divisive mode, yeah, they'll grab some attention here and there for whatever outrageous claims they make about our ticket. But I don't think a lot of it's going to stick, because none of it's true. And maybe most importantly, because I think people are just kind of bored with that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is a little boring. And also making him smaller and not bigger is a good part of the strategy. Former Mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking with me tonight.
Well, there are three people who deserve the credit for tonight's successful launch of the new Democratic ticket: Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the man who made it possible, Joe Biden. If tonight's debut of the Democratic running mates for president and vice president had, say, an executive producer, it would be the person who made this night possible, Joe Biden, who 4 years ago chose Kamala Harris as his running mate, and 2 weeks ago, just over 2 weeks ago, announced he would stop running for president, and designed, in the timing of his endorsement, a quick and chaos-free transition of the Biden-Harris campaign into the Harris campaign, which then triggered a rapid series of endorsements by other prominent Democrats, leaving not a single Democrat willing to launch a campaign to try to take the nomination away from Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris assembled enough delegate support to win the nomination the day after Joe Biden dropped out and endorsed her. Candidate for President Kamala Harris has had a flawless first 2 weeks of campaigning, wisely adding winning veterans of Democratic presidential campaigns to the staff of the campaign that today became the Harris-Walz campaign. President Biden, no doubt watching proudly, said this today: the first major decision a party nominee makes is their choice for vice president. And Kamala Harris has made a great decision in choosing Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. It's time for all Democrats, and indeed all Americans committed to freedom, democracy, and American leadership in the world, to rally behind the Harris-Walz ticket. Every generation of Americans faces a moment where they are asked to defend American democracy. That moment is now. When prosecutors walk into court on the big cases, they are not alone. They always have at least one co-counsel with them at the prosecution table. Tonight, Donald Trump's chief political prosecutor, Vice President Harris, continued her prosecution of Donald Trump with her new co-counsel, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
I was a courtroom prosecutor. So in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who scammed consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
When Donald Trump watched that tonight, he knew he was up against another new candidate who he could not handle. Donald Trump has already been lost trying to figure out how to campaign against Kamala Harris. And now he's even more lost trying to figure out how to campaign against Tim Walz, who in that one line told the truth about the violent crime rate under Donald Trump's presidency more clearly and more memorably than any Democrat ever has. In a similar burst of clarity, Tim Walz blasted through decades and decades of political rhetoric about abortion when he said this.
Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you.
Mind your own damn business. That is nothing less than the single best political message the Democrats have ever delivered about abortion and reproductive freedom. This is the first presidential election since Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices revoked a constitutional right for the first time, the right of women to control their own bodies, including the right to control their own bodies after they are raped. Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices said that 10-year-old girls raped by family members cannot be protected in any way by federal law. The Constitution does not care about them, according to Donald Trump's Supreme Court. And in the very first presidential campaign since Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices did that, Tim Walz is saying to Donald Trump and his Republican judges, mind your own damn business. And polling shows that the mind your own damn business position commands a large majority of American voters. Next year, if Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the White House, they will be legislating a bill with all of the protections for women of Roe versus Wade. And in the debates on the House floor and the Senate floor, you will hear repeatedly the Democratic position described more simply than ever in the words, mind your own damn business. We now have a presidential and vice presidential team of running mates who are the best possible spokespeople in the history of the Democratic Party for the mind your own damn business position. And we have had 2 vice presidents from Minnesota, both Democrats. Walter Mondale, serving with President Jimmy Carter, and Hubert Humphrey, the first vice president from Minnesota, serving with President Lyndon Johnson. It was Hubert Humphrey who, on the campaign trail, took on the nickname the Happy Warrior. Tonight, there is a new Happy Warrior from Minnesota running for vice president.
Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there? Look. I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and, yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back. So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead. Over those next 91 days and every day in the White House, I'll have Vice President Harris's back. Every single day. And we'll have yours. You know how this works. We can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KamalaHarris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country and you're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President. God bless America.